Alright, so I told you guys I'd be working on. Actually, you guys really want me to focus on this off-grid stuff, so I've got another off-grid video coming up, which should explain the rest of everything. Then I'm gonna go back to really focusing on the WISP-related stuff. But oh, by the way, sorry, I am getting sick. Alright, so today we're gonna talk about battery technology, how to use it, how to blow yourself up, and how to install it properly. Now, we have your typical Baghdad battery, voltaic pile, and LeConte clanche cell. Yeah, these are pretty common in today's... No, they're not. These are ancient. These are like the first batteries. Actually, I think this was the first, this was the second, and this was the third battery. Anyway, let's get serious here. Bum, 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 full screen. Yay, I'm learning how to do presentations. Okay, so these are the ones you guys are most familiar with. Sealed lead acid, or AGM batteries. Actually, the majority of sealed lead acid batteries you see now are AGMs. Some sealed lead acids that you find in your vehicle are flooded lead acid, but the majority of these little guys you see here are AGMs. Alright, that's absorbed glass mat. So what it is there's like there's, I think it's fiberglass actually, like almost like they're almost like little pockets with the materials in them, and it's all soaked with electrolyte or sulfuric acid, pretty much. And yeah, this way you can like literally tip the cell upside down and not really drain it, but you never really want to do that. So these are the cells we usually find in UPSs. These cells are great for enclosures where you don't have any ventilation, or you need high security, or you want to walk away for a while. These guys here, when they gas, they barely gas. If you ripped off one of these caps on here, you're going to find a bunch of little rubber caps underneath. And what they've developed is this system that actually recombines the hydrogen and oxygen to produce water again. So you do get some evaporation from these cells, especially if you boil the shit out of them and run them dry. But if you run them in standard operating parameters that they're designed for, you never run them too hard, and you never let them really get too low, they will last quite a while, actually, 5 to 7 years. So, yeah, here's some benefits. Low maintenance, broad temperature range. They'll work down to minus 20 Celsius and up to plus 60, but just like any other lead acid battery, if you let these cells die, like we're talking like 10 volts or less, in like minus 10 or colder Celsius weather, your battery is going to freeze and it's going to split open. Just like if you let the battery get too hot, all the moisture inside of it's going to evaporate at the caps, and you're not really going to have anything left. Your battery is going to be dead. And if you overcharge them, of course, these guys will get really hot, and the sides will split open, and little pockets will expand, and it'll just destroy the cells. Okay, here's a little thing I didn't even realize, is that apparently AGMs charge faster than flooded lead acid cells. So that's kind of a perk. And let's see here, spill proof, of course. You can put them on their sides. I don't recommend it. As you can see here in this commercial telecom application over here, these guys are all upright. It's probably the best way to keep these guys, though I have seen them on their sides before. I still think that they're better on their bottoms. Okay, so here we go. I already mentioned this. They're vibration resistant. Yes, that's pretty cool. That's why you find them in children's toys too. Not only that, because these are one of the safer cells, other than shorting them out and like burning your hand, or setting something on fire, or maybe smashing them open and eating the contents. They're pretty safe. So good in children's toys. They're locked away. You also find them in UPSs, emergency lighting systems, some garden lights, your lanterns and torches. Very wide or broad usage of these bad boys here. Alright, drawbacks. Yes, if you try to run these things in a car, for example, if you were to take this big ass crown battery here and dump it into something which accepts an 8D battery, like a Caterpillar tractor or like a dump truck or something, the charging system in that vehicle will destroy this cell. They are not designed to run at those voltage ranges that flooded lead acid batteries run at. So AGMs need to be treated slightly different. Typically, here's your charging, or here's your voltages, I should say. Your float is 13.6 to 13.8 at the most. That's where you want to keep it, right? Most UPSs, you'll notice, will actually be at 13.55 or something like that, like just under 13.6. The voltage range on these guys is from 11.5 to 12.7. 11.5 is what you should consider a dead battery. So if you're talking a 24-volt system, that would be 23 volts. If it gets down to 23 volts, that is bad. And of course, the upper operating range in these guys, 12.7, so that would be 25.4. 25.4 is a fully charged 24-volt battery bank, typically, if you're running sealed lead acid. And the maximum charge voltage that they recommend is 14.6. Now, take screenshots of all this wonderful goodness if you want to. Let's see here. I found some graphs, of course. I will be putting the sources in the in the description for the video. So I found these wonderful little graphs on the internet, which are perfect to show you guys. All right, so this is at a ambient temperature of 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit that this little graph is made out. All right, so when bulk charging, let's see here. When bulk charging, you can run it at a voltage of 2.5 volts per cell. Where's the calculator? Actually, 2.5. Damn, yeah, I do need a calculator. I'm getting dumb in my old age. And if I hit calculator button, it will get rid of this little screen. So, yeah, 2.5 volts per cell. That's what you can typically charge it at in bulk. Let's see here. Absorption. You can run it at, let's see here, about 2.46 volts. 2.45 it says right there. So bulk is when you just dump raw power into it. It kind of gets the process going. Okay, absorption, that's when the electrolyte actually starts to move around stuff, you know, like that's when the sulfur leaves the, or sulfur crystals I should say, little particles leave the lead plates and return to the electrolyte. And then float, of course, is just idle battery. That is your idle battery right there. Okay, so there's your explanation on sealed lead acid, one of the most common batteries in the world. Alright, next, gel cells. Gel cells are great. You find them in large telecom. If you have ever been into a large cell phone tower owned by like a big company like Rogers or Bell, chances are you've probably seen one of these racks of batteries, these gel cells. These guys are great because they've got a lot of benefits to them. As you can see, long life, 6 to 8 years. Let's see here, they will work from minus 20 Celsius to plus 50 degrees Celsius, so about the same as a sealed lead acid, but these guys don't really gas either. If they gas, they're dead. So very low maintenance. Very, very low maintenance on these. Just like, well, I guess AGMs, you can't really maintain them. You know, once they're dead, they're dead. Let's see here. Roughly twice the discharge cycles of an AGM SLA. So, yeah, these guys get about twice the life on average than a regular AGM battery would. Okay, spill proof. That's right. Because it's a gelatinous glob inside of this these batteries. It's just like, it's all... how did they explain it? It's like they take silica, and the electrolyte is absorbed into the silica, and it creates like a gel that just kind of stays put inside. Let's see here. It does not sulfur sulfation. Well, that's good, because if you've got batteries that have been like run low for a while, or you've stored them at a low voltage and whatnot, they'll actually get sulfur crystal buildup in the plates, and you know, it kind of destroys them because like you don't get electron flow between the plates and the electrolyte anymore. It's kind of screwed. Drawbacks: requires compatible charger. I mentioned that because you do have to be careful on how you charge these guys, because if you do it wrong, you will get little bubbles in the gel and it will destroy them. Let's see here. Yep, can be damaged by improper charging methods. The majority of chargers we're going to be using in this industry, though, is they usually have a sealed or flooded or gel option on them. So, because these are all the most common ones to use. You'll usually see gel cells in like 48 volt DC plants. So, going back to mentioning a cell phone site, for example, you'll go into a lot of cell phone towers and they will have racks of DC to DC converters for their equipment, and you will see all these batteries. There'll be a rack full of charging equipment to charge all this stuff. There you go. And then here is the characteristics. Okay, so The 11.8 volts is kind of dead. That's dead. So that would be what 23.6 volts would be dead on these guys. And 12.8 is your 100% charge state. So that is 24, 25.6 at full. Okay, so here we go. Here is the charging methodology, I guess you could say. All right, so your bulk here. Let's see here at 12 volt, 20 amp DC output. Okay, yeah, so we got them running roughly around 14 volts here for the charge. So it's going. Let's see here. It's going constant current first. Let's see here. This should battery terminal voltage. Yes, there we go. So it's constant current first, and then constant voltage is what it looks like. Let's see here at 14.1 it says. So that's 2.35 volts per cell. Blah blah blah. And as you can see, the current tapers off as the charge reaches full. So, that's just to keep the batteries from literally boiling their gel and producing little air pockets inside of them. And that's what you want to worry about with gels. Okay, moving on. These are my favorites. Flooded lead acid. You'll find them in many cottages, forklifts, cars, RVs, boats, whatever. Okay, these ones here, these are the ones that you really, like, we're starting to get into batteries. I organized it in batteries that are like, you can just toss them inside of your enclosure, up to batteries that can, have to be in external enclosures, So the earlier batteries that I mentioned, of course, you can put them all inside of your equipment enclosures and not have to worry about anything. The next couple of batteries will destroy your equipment if you have them in the same enclosure. So, flooded lead acid batteries. These ones you're probably familiar with, especially people call them deep cycles. Right here we've got a couple of 2-volt cells. The one at the top, we've got Trojans and Rolls, which are the Rolls ones you'll usually find in marine as well. You'll find them on big boats. Big boats. These are amazing batteries. They're beautiful. So are the Trojans. So we've got the two 2-volt cells here. Usually if you're building a large capacity, large current bank, you want to go 2-volt cells. So like if you're running like a commercial building or a shop or something like that, you want to build up like a 48-volt bank with these 2-volt cells. You're going to get a lot more storage and a lot more current availability. Lifespan, 5 to 10 years. Yes, I say up to 10 years because I have seen these guys last when they're taken care of. See, the thing is that with flooded lead acid batteries, well, with most of these batteries, any lead acid battery typically, it's charge cycles that you want to watch. So if you never run these guys, harder than a 50% duty cycle, you're going to get much more life, usually twice the rated life out of them. If you run them light, like say run them at like 20 or 30%, that increases the life even more. So, it's just every time you run your battery dead, that greatly reduces its life because that's knocking off a charge cycle that it's capable of doing. All right, so remember that. You don't want to run your batteries completely dead, ever. Not good for them. Also, another thing to keep in mind as well is if you do run your batteries completely dead, most systems have a low voltage cutoff point where they will turn themselves off. They'll stop doing things. They'll just, not work at a certain point. Your equipment will shut down. Your charge controllers will say, whoa. And then, of course, most smart charge controllers, MPPT, PWM, whatever, what they'll do is they'll start off and kind of trickle charge the battery until it comes up to a reasonable state, and then they'll start their bulk charge. See, the catch is that if you're looking at a 12-volt battery and it's down to like 8 to 10 volts, you're going to increase the current a lot. So you can actually damage components if you run your batteries that low. So there you go. Let's see here, flooded lead acid. Yes, so remember, if you're going to use flooded lead acid, they are great for lots of storage and lots of runtime. We got a couple of 6 volts here and a 12 volt. These 6 volts here we've used in cottages many, many times. This is a scrubber battery, we call them, golf cart scrubber. These scrubbers are usually good for 490 amp hour. The golf carts are good for 225 amp hour. If you wanted to run a 24 volt system, you would need 4 of these batteries. And again, you build your own enclosure or buy an enclosure to put these guys in because the gas from these guys charging will destroy your equipment. Now these guys here, it's pretty much, okay, well I believe that the charge state, let's just see here. Stage 1, constant voltage, yeah. These guys really don't care how you charge them. You all know how to charge flooded lead acid batteries. So with these ones here, once you hit about 10.8, your battery is dead. 12.8, your battery is full. Float charge on these guys is about around 13.5-ish. Full charge is 14.8, and equalizing these guys, you're going to be at like 15.6. Equalizing you really don't want to do very often. If you do it constantly, you're going to damage your cells. You want to do it from time to time, maybe like once every 6 months. Run and equalize on your batteries just to like clean up the plates and get the sulfation dissolved, get rid of the little sulfur crystals in the plates and whatnot. Okay, yeah, that's pretty much it with these guys. And here's your characteristics again, not too complicated. Moving along. Nickle Iron. These guys are incredible. You go up to Anchorage or James Bay or places way the hell out there where the temperatures get really low, you're usually going to find these guys. So typical application, remote telecom, SCADA, utility companies. Lots of utilities use these as their UPS batteries for their SCADA. Pumping places, pump stations and all that crap, they did that too. These guys are like nearly indestructible, actually. They're just godly. They're incredible. You wouldn't believe how tough these things are. You can do whatever the hell you want to them. You can overcharge them, you can undercharge them, you can run them dead completely, like down to like 0.5 volts, and they will run. It won't hurt them. They are tanks. You can get about 20 to 50 years out of these things. It's incredible. So if you've got a site that you need to walk away from for a long period of time, that's up in the mountains or, way the hell off in a remote place where you can't get there a lot of the time, use these. If you've got really low temperatures that you're going to be working with, use these. But always make sure that you've got good monitoring for any battery banks that you're running, okay? So, vibration resistance. That's another benefit of these guys. Maintenance. The electrolyte doesn't really dissolve or like evaporate. So every now and again you need to put some water in them. Just, demineralized, deionized water, whatever. So it's actually kind of idiot proof too. When these guys are fully charged, that's when you want to top your battery up. There's your max fill, your minimum fill. Alright, again, temperature tolerance, -40 to +60. Awesome. Here's the one drawback though. High self-discharge rate. So if you leave one of these guys sitting on a shelf, I believe it's a 30% self-discharge rate. So these guys will you'll find them dead in in a couple of weeks if there's no charge going into them. So you need to kind of keep these guys topped up a bit. Okay, and here's some pictures for you because people like pretty pictures. These are typically in 2-volt cells. Well, not really 2 volts. Let's see here. They range from 1.4 to 1.8-ish. 1.8 is your peak voltage on these cells when they are fully charged. When you're doing your math on that, you can't just really use 6 of these. Well, I guess you can use 6 of them to do a 12-volt integration. But, you do the math. I'm not going to whip my calculator out anyway. So, again, peak voltage is about 1.8 volts per cell. Now, finding chargers for these guys, you can't just toss any charger on these guys. I mean, you kind of could, technically, and it would probably work. But you're better to have a charger that matches the battery chemistry. You want to make sure that your system can run properly with these things. You want to try to get the batteries configured in a way that you're going to have the correct operating voltage range for your equipment, that sort of stuff. So there we go. Look at these guys. 800 amp hour. It's just nuts. Okay, so yeah, it says right here 1.2 volts. So that's the nominal voltage on these guys. Okay. And moving along. Alright, lithium ion batteries, which many of you guys are talking about using now. I don't like them. I don't recommend them. I never use them in a UPS or an off-grid site or whatnot because they just kind of seem stupid. First of all, they are babies. This is a new technology. It's emerging. They have progressed a lot because actually I just learned recently, doing this research for you guys, that their temperature range has been greatly increased. The early generations of lithium-ion batteries were very susceptible to high and low temperatures. It would just destroy them. you'd see your batteries swell like you do in your cell phones, right? So if you left it out in the cold overnight, your battery would swell. It would destroy it. If you left it out in the heat, it would swell and destroy it. So yeah, they have improved, but they're still babies. Lifespan on these guys is just a mere 2 to 3 years, which really does not make it worthwhile when you can just run AGMs or, gels or flooded lead acid. I mean, all the other options which I just mentioned are way better than these guys. Sure, they're lighter, which is why they're great for drones and stuff like that. Much higher energy density. If you've ever shot one, you'll see what I'm talking about. They will explode. Low rate of self-discharge, so these guys can sit in a drawer for a long period of time, and they'll lose like a millivolt here and there, but unless the cell is damaged, they won't completely discharge. There is no such thing as maintenance for lithium-ion cell that I've seen so far. So, Now, you do need to have a battery management system. Like, you can buy these ones here, which resemble a sealed lead acid AGM cell. They will swap in typically. That's what they're designed for, because they do have this battery management circuit inside of this little shell here. So God knows what's inside there. I'm assuming that this is a bunch of 18650s packed inside of this little cell here, this power brick. 7.5 amp hour. Yeah. So there's probably a lot of empty space in there, and then your BMS on top. And then you've got monsters like these guys here. Yeah. So there's over here is your homebrew. This is one that's you can either order 18650 cells off of Amazon, and you can buy these pretty little plastic trays that they all go in, and then get the pre-made nickel strips and weld them on yourself, and then you can just get a BMS like this little thing right here. It looks like that's a 20 amp BMS. So yeah, you just get your BMS battery management system, and you solder on appropriately. And notice here that there's a few leads. Those are balancing leads, because actually each time that you bridge a battery, you need to monitor it at the bridge point to make sure all the cells are at the same voltage. This guy does that as well. It also does over circuit short circuit, over current, under voltage, all the protection. It's all built into it. It's very basic, but it does the job. So that little guy there will run your batteries. This is for your lithium-ion battery system. But again, these are not a great idea to use in an off-grid site. I know everybody loves the idea of them. Oh, lithium-ion batteries are great, but they're also more expensive. They don't have a good lifespan. Why? Just go with AGMs or flooded lead acid. All right, battery storage. This is something which I definitely wanted to dig into, and yeah, so here's my opinions on things. Once again, I am no expert on anything. I just know how to make things work and work well, and I've done a lot of remote stuff all over the place. I've done mining, I've done off-grid homes, I've done off-grid businesses, all sorts of wonderful stuff in the past. But yeah, let's take a look at some stuff here. So on the left and right, I've got a couple of commercially available enclosures here. Everybody loves Tycon, especially in our industry. Like, Tycon caters to us. Okay, so if you look down here in the bottom right, that's a beautiful bank of gel cells. These gel cells you also find in mobility scooters and whatnot. But you can see this cabinet is all set up perfectly. So what you're doing here is you're putting your batteries outside of your equipment enclosure. So this would go under or beside your equipment enclosure with your routers and all that wonderful stuff, your solar charging equipment and whatnot, just keeping the batteries separate. That's basically the purpose of battery enclosures. It's always good to keep your batteries separate from your equipment. As you can see here, you can just have a box that's basically just your power plant. That's it, away from your equipment. If anything happens or there's any faults, then your equipment does not get destroyed. Whereas with flooded lead acid batteries, they have to be, like anything that gases, has to be outside of your equipment enclosure. Otherwise, you will get, well, in most cases, hydrogen sulfate gas that will corrode the hell out of all of your electronics, which will eventually grow fuzzies on the legs of ICs and stuff, which will eventually short and destroy your equipment. That's what happens, folks. Or, it'll just corrode the hell out of everything, and you'll get fuzzies on things, and they'll just break off and stop working, and then you'll wonder what the hell happened. So if you're doing any kind of flooded battery or anything that sloshes at all, that's a typical good rule. If it sloshes, it needs an enclosure. If it, feels like you're holding like a boiled egg, chances are you can put it in your enclosure and not have to worry about anything. Alright, so here's some alpha enclosures here. These guys are really nice. Alpha is typically used by the bigger cable companies, cable telecom, blah, blah, blah. Street lights, transit, they typically use alpha. So there's some nice enclosures there. I believe that in this bottom picture here, those are flooded batteries, but don't quote me on that. And these trays also slide out. They're pretty cool. Now, for most of us, which is probably why you're watching my video anyway, is because you're trying to learn how to do things on the cheap and do them properly. And that's what I'm trying to teach you guys. I found this on nomadhome.com. These guys here do little off-grid systems, and they teach you stuff. So what they've built here is a plywood battery box. These ones are extremely common, and God, we've used them so many times. The nice thing about them as well is they're kind of corrosion resistant. So you can put your batteries in here, and if you spill acid or whatever, or overfill a cell or whatnot, your wood's not going to fall apart. I mean, it might rot because you've got water in it, or you'll get dry rot because it got wet and dried out. But for the most part, plywood battery bank enclosures are great. You just throw it together. You use some common sense factors here. You need vents at the top and bottom because hydrogen gas typically rises. So you want some airflow in there. You know, you can also use dryer vents. That's one thing you can do on these guys. You can get small vents and put them up here just to keep the rain out, keep the bugs out, because you don't want to open it up and find a hornet nest. That's always a pain in the ass. But yeah, if you're on a budget and you really can't afford, you know, a nice Tycon enclosure or an Alpha enclosure or whatever else is out there, you know, you can build one, and there's no shame in doing so. You can also make them look nice. You can paint them white so that it blends in, or paint it green so it blends in. These guys are sturdy as hell. They can be vandal-proof depending on how you build it. It really boils down to how much effort you want to put into it, and, you know. So, at the very least, if you're doing flooded lead-acid cells, use a plywood battery enclosure. And remember, if you're using RV batteries or deep cycle cells, chances are it is a flooded lead-acid cell, especially if it's got caps on top. Those are the ones that will gas, and they will destroy your equipment. Alright. So I think I'm at the end of the video here. And yeah, that's pretty much everything that I needed to tell you guys. So if you want to look at the physics behind batteries, because I did kind of stumble there, by all means, look up the physics behind how an actual lead-acid battery works. But my whole tutorial here was just to tell you guys about the different batteries, the chemistries, proper storage, your handling, what they're capable of, so you guys have a better idea of what to use for your enclosures and whatnot, okay? If you got any corrections or suggestions, please leave them in the comments below, because God knows I'm learning just as much as everybody else. I'm just trying to teach you guys what I know. So, yeah, if you notice any inconsistencies, just leave them there. And don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends. And yeah, I'm going to keep working on more videos. I have been in touch with a renewable energy company so that I can do a little presentation for you guys about DC plant. So I can show you guys an actual off-grid system that's actually done up nicely, and I can show you some charge controllers and some DC to DC converters and whatnot, okay? So, there you go. I hope you guys learned something, and yeah, we'll catch you later.